Hey guys, alright, today we're going to learn how to add and subtract rational expressions. So if the denominators are the same, there's 3 steps, and let's look in the dotted box with the numbers. So they already have a common denominator of 4, so I can just add or subtract the numerators. So I can add together the 3 and the 5 on the top and get 8. Step 2, I keep the denominator the same, so 4. Step 3, I simplify. 8 divided by 4 is 2. We're going to do the same kind of thing, but with letters. So number 1, it has the same denominator. Now before I subtract these, I need to add the negative. So I'm going to make that a plus, and I'm going to make that a negative, and that a plus 5. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So 2x can combine with negative x, and that gets me x. Negative 3 can combine with positive 5, and that gets me 2. Step 2, I keep the denominator, so I keep it as 3 parentheses x plus 2. Step 3, I simplify by combining like terms, canceling, or reducing. And so I cannot do anything else except for cancel out those two, and I'm left with nothing up top, so a 1 and a 3 on bottom. That's my final answer. So number 2, when I add the numerators, I can add these 7x and negative 3x, and that gets me 4x. I can also add the negative 1 and the negative 1 and make it negative 2. Then step 2, I keep the denominator the same. Step 3, I simplify. So what I need to do before I can cancel anything is I need to factor the top. So the top is a GCF of 2, and I'm left with 2x minus 1. Now I can cancel those things out, and I'm left with a 2 up top and an x down bottom. Now, if they're not the same, it gets a little trickier. So look at the dotted box with the numbers. So the first thing I need to do is get a common denominator, because I cannot factor any of the bottoms. And so the common denominator in this case will be 20, because I multiply them together. So then I need to multiply this one by 4. That gets me 12 up top, and this one by 5. That gets me 25 up top. Now I can add the tops together and get 37. Step 4, I already kept the denominator the same. And step 5, I cannot reduce that, so that's my final answer. Number 3 is very similar to it. I have an a and a b on the bottom, so I can just multiply those together and make that my common denominator, a, b. So that means I need to multiply this first one by b and the second one by a. So that's going to make the top of my first one 6b and the top of my second one 5a. Step 3, add or subtract the numerators. So I can first add the negative, and I cannot combine those two because they're not like terms. So I'm just going to have 6b and negative 5a. Step 4, keep the denominator. And factor and cancel step 5, but I can't factor anything out of the top, and I can't cancel anything because of that minus sign right there. And so that is my final answer. The next one. So you could multiply these two together and get your common denominator of 50x, but there's a smaller denominator that you could get. And so a trick I do is I just ask myself, can I make the smaller denominator into the bigger one? And I can. I can multiply that 5 by 2x, and that gets me 10x. So 10x is going to be my bottom. I need to multiply the top also by 2x, so that's going to make my new top 6x squared. And the second top will stay the same because it already had the common denominator. Step 3, add or subtract the numerators. They aren't like terms, so I just have to put it on top like this. Step 4, keep the denominator the same. Step 5, factor and cancel. I can't factor anything. I can't cancel anything, so that's my final answer. We aren't going to be doing as much crossing out today as we have in the past couple lessons. All right, the next ones are getting a little bit harder. So 5 is the first time we have to do the first step where we have to factor. So I am going to go off to the side and slide and divide. 4 on top, 5 on bottom. What multiplies to 4 and adds to 5 is 4 and 1. So I write x plus 4, x plus 1 on the bottom. The only reason I do that is because now hopefully you realize that you have something in common already. So what we have in common already is the x plus 1s. So I'm going to bring that down into my common denominator. And then you bring down any oddballs that don't have any matches. So in this case, x plus 4 doesn't have anything in common, so I just bring it down. So now I compare the denominators of the original fractions with my new denominator. And so the first fraction already has the blue and the yellow, the x plus 4 and the x plus 1. So I'm just going to keep 6x up top. But the second fraction only has the yellow. It only has the x plus 1. So it needs the blue. It needs the x plus 4. And what I need to do is distribute that 2. So really be 2x plus 8 up top. The next step is to add the numerators. And so our like terms are 6x and 2x can combine and make that 8x. And then this 8 right here just comes down. And this is all over my common denominator. And the last step is to factor and cancel. So notice we still haven't canceled anything yet. We wait till the very end to do that. So I can factor an 8 out of the top, and I'm left with x plus 1. And now you should see that the x plus 1s will cancel. And I'm left with my final answer, I'm going to write it up here, of 8 over x plus 4. All right, the next one. To get your common denominator, I know it's probably going to be a temptation to say, let me just multiply this by 2 and this by 3 and make my common denominator x plus 6. The reason you cannot do that is because you are obligated by the laws of math to distribute that 2 to both things and distribute the 3 to both things. And then that's not going to get you the common denominator of x plus 6. So you can't do that. What you have to do is just bring both binomials down. So the x plus 3 is going to come down. And the x plus 2 is also going to come down. So that means I need to multiply this first one by the purple, by the x plus 2. Distribute the 5. And I need to multiply the second one by the yellow, x plus 3. And I also need to distribute that. Okay, the next step, add or subtract the numerators. Before I do so, though, I need to add the negative. I have 5x and negative 2x gives me 3x. And I have 10 and negative 6, which gives me 4. And the next step is to keep the denominator the same. And then the last step is to factor, but I cannot factor anything out of the top, so that's my answer. Notice I didn't cancel anything, so you don't want to go too cancel crazy on these problems. All right, the last problem. So I can factor the bottoms of these again. So I'm going to take a GCF out of this one. I'm left with x plus 5. I'm going to go off to the side and slide and divide this. That's going to give me 5 and 5. So hopefully you should see they already have in common an x plus 5. Yeah. So I'm going to bring that down. And then I can bring down the other oddballs. So this 2 is going to have to come down. And that's second x plus 5. So the first fraction has a purple, it has a yellow. What it needs is a green. It needs an x plus 5. Now when I multiply those tops together to get my new top, I'm going to have to FOIL it or use the box method. So I need to FOIL these together, and let me do that off to the side because I'm running out of room. So I'm going to make a box. I can put x plus 5 up top, x plus 4 down the side. First box, x squared, 5x, 4x, 20. I add the diagonal. So I'm going to go back here. It's x squared. I add the diagonal, 9x plus 20. All right, now the next one has a yellow. It has a green. What it needs is a purple. It needs the 2. So that's going to make the top of that one a 10. It's a subtraction between the two, so I need to add the negative, and now I can combine like terms. So I can combine the 20 and the negative 10. That's the only thing I can combine. So that is going to be 10. And the x squared and the 9x is just going to come over. And this is all over our common denominator of 2 and x plus 5, or you can put x plus 5 squared. It doesn't matter. So then I can try to factor the top of this one. And there's nothing that multiplies to 10 and adds to 9. And so that is my final answer. So again, we didn't cancel anything. I know it's going to be your temptation to start to factor it right here. You're going to want to factor this, and you're going to want to cancel things. And I'm telling you, you just got to get yourself out of that habit. All right, so you are going to be taking a short survey in class tomorrow. And so I'm going to ask you, what celebrity did Miss Bupp show you in the video? And so here's the celebrity. So you need to say Justin Bieber whenever it asks you in the survey.